Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good morning and happy Mother's Day. Of course, there are these announcements. Our annual meeting of the congregation will be held by Zoom next Sunday, May 16th, beginning at 11 a.m. You will hear reports from our trustees, the board's committee chairs, and your resident minister. You can also help elect the next year's Board of Trustees. So please do attend. We like to have everyone there because you'll hear about how the behind the scenes activities of this center go forward, and you'll have an opportunity to comment or question if you wish. So please do make it a point to come next Sunday if it's at all convenient for you. Also, please mark your calendar for our first face-to-face meeting as a congregation, which will be on Sunday, July the 4th. We should all be fully vaccinated by then. And in preparation for that, there will be 2 Seva Saturdays in June, the 19th and the 26th, to help get our center outside and inside ready to receive our congregation in style. For these 2 days and the 4th, those members who have been fully vaccinated will be welcome to attend. For those of you not familiar with the Seva Saturday, it starts at 10 a.m., ends at 2 p.m. You do not have to be there for the full 4 hours. Any time that you can spare at all, that you feel like coming and offering your services to the center is much appreciated. If you're here at lunchtime, which we define as 12:30, there will be a nice lunch served. That usually takes about half an hour. And so we get back to work between 1 and 1:15. And some people do stay after. So those are the announcements that I have. Is there anything else that I might announce that hasn't been announced? All right. Well, again, happy Mother's Day. I'll just sing a short song that says, chant the mother's name. Ma, 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 bole. Ma, 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 bole. Dakshina Kali, Kali bole ma. Dakshina Kali, Kali bole ma. Ma, 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 ma bole. Shri Devi Durga, Durga bole ma. Shri Devi Durga, Durga bole ma. Ma, 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 ma bole. Sharada Devi, Devi Bole Ma. Sharada Devi, Devi Bole Ma. Ma, 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 Bole. Sweet Mother Mary, Mary Bole Ma. Sweet Mother Mary, Mary Bole Ma. Ma, 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 Bole. Sweet Mother Mary, Sharada Devi, Sri Devi Durga, Dakshina Kali, Kali Bole Ma. Dakshina Kali, Dakshina Kali, Kali Bole Ma. Ma, 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 Bole. Om Amen. So just a little, that's the way, by the way, that we start when we do the Chandi readings in English on Tuesday and Saturday. A more extended version of that song is sung. It's an adaptation of something learned in Southern California, at the Vedanta Society of Southern California. So we're in the month of May, believe it or not, already. We're in the month of May. May is a month for the study of Bhakti Yoga. A Bhakti yogi, a bhakta, has a devotional relationship with God. This is developed over time by study, prayer, ritual, and worship. As a bhakta, you practice giving every action, thought, emotion, perception, and tendency a Godward turn. Everything you are, both positive and negative, is offered to the divine presence. Your prayer is for the carefree self-surrender of a child in its mother or father's arms. And finally, union with your beloved. In that state, no barrier of ego remains. In that state, no barrier of ego remains. The devotee becomes one with the divine presence in all embracing love. From Chaitanya's prayer, O thou who stealest the hearts of thy devotees, do with me what thou wilt, for thou art my heart's beloved, thou and thou alone. So today we're talking about a mother's love. A mother's love. Swami Swahananda, head of the Vedanta Society of Southern California, took responsibility for the Vedanta Center of Atlanta when Swami Yogeshananda ji retired. Swahananda was very devoted to the Divine Mother. He encouraged some of his disciples to study the Devi Mahatmyam, also known as the Chandi, 700 verses in praise of the goddess of the universe. When Swahananda left the body in 2012, Swami Sarvadevananda took charge of the Vedanta Society of Southern California and our center. He also encourages some of his disciples to study the Chandi and what it teaches us about the Divine Mother. Now, as is often said, what is to be presented is for your invitation. It's not something that you must believe. It's not something that you need to swallow whole. You take from it what seems auspicious to you, if anything at all. And if you do take from it in such a way that you make it part of your spiritual practice. That's the only reason for doing this, is to give us the principles and practices that will enable us to move forward spiritually. So today we're going to talk about the Divine Mother as she is discussed, as she is described, and as she is fully praised in the Devi Mahatmyam or the Chandi. The Chandi tells of 3 instances in which the Mother of the Universe rescues the world, literally our home here, but of course also this would include the universe. We may not know the particulars of that, but nevertheless, it is not just the earth, but as far as we're concerned, it is the earth. Mother rescues the world from demonic forces. In the Chandi, they're called asuras and daityas. In each instance, these beings, daityas and asuras, are said to hate righteousness, and they have overpowered the mother's servants, the devas, or gods, lower small g, gods, those responsible. Robbed of their prowess, the devas can no longer sustain and protect Earth, who is herself a goddess, and all life forms that live here with her. In each of the 3 stories, the helpless devas explain their situation to the Divine Mother and plead for her help. She is moved by their plight and her love, as we'll discover, of all her children. She is moved by the plight of the devas, the fact that they have been removed from their positions of assigned positions of protection and sustenance for the earth. They have been robbed of their prowess. She loves them. She also loves the asuras and the daityas, as we'll see. She loves all her children. So, in each of these stories, the Devi draws every deva's power unto herself, and then defeats the demonic forces and restores order. The devas are restored to their proper place, and the asuras and the daityas are assigned back to their proper place. All 3 of the Chandi's stories tell a tale of great carnage and destruction as the mother overcomes her violent, arrogant, defiant children, because this is the nature of those asuras and daityas, particularly their leadership, who are said to hate righteousness. Of course, this leads to a thought that what is happening right now around the world looks very much like the opening of another chapter of the Chandi. This morning, I'll explain why that thought arose and discuss how the Divine Mother might right now be purifying and lifting up all of creation, including her children of demonic nature. Now, this thought of this being an opening of a 4th story in the chapters of the Chandi, came from a friend in Santa Fe, New Mexico, about 3 years ago, Deepak, He's also a disciple of Swami Prabhavananda. And he was focusing at that time on the destruction of the environment, the destruction, the climate change, the great forest fires and great hurricanes and great destructiveness that was going on. And he just sent to me in a message, this looks to me like the opening of another chapter of the Chandi. And then, of course, a couple of years later, the pandemic hit. Now, it's said in the Chandi that Mother, multiplying her own form into many, which makes her virtually undefeatable, as we're seeing, multiplying her own form into many, attacks those who hate righteousness. Now, we don't understand the karma of this situation, and no pretense is made from here or from anyone else that I know that we understand the karma of who lives and who dies and why this is happening the way it's happening. Mother has her own will. So, but there is great death, great carnage going on, great destruction, great transformation. As is said in Eliza Gilkison's wonderful song, there seems to be a great correction underway. So I'll tell the story of some of what happens in the Chandi, and you just compare for yourself and see if this thought that this looks like the opening of another chapter makes any sense. And what that might mean to us as spiritual aspirants. As the Chandi's first story is beginning, Brahma, mind-born son of the Divine Mother and the God in charge of creation, says to his mother, "You are the great knowledge and the great illusion, the great intelligence and the abiding ignorance, the great reality and the great delusion, the great goddess, as well as the great demoness." I'm going to read that again. This is how he describes his mother to herself. "You are the great knowledge and the great illusion, the great intelligence and the abiding ignorance, the great reality and the great delusion, the great goddess, as well as the great demoness." Brahma continues to praise her and pleads on behalf of the devas for her to confound and slay two unassailable asuras, Madhu and Kaitaba. She is moved, as I said, by what Brahma tells her and what the devas have presented through Brahma. So she does slay these two great asuras. And as part of the next story, the defeat of the great demon Mahisasura. So she defeats these two, and then another story begins after some time has passed. Another great demon has robbed the devas of their prowess. This demon is Mahisasura. And of course, this is the story of Durga and her defeat of Mahisasura that we are familiar with, that is part of Durga Puja and so on. So as part of the next story, the defeat of the great demon Mahisasura, these remarkable phrases are sung by Indra, king of the gods, and the hosts of devas and sages, for whom the mother has won this second victory. This is what they sing. The world attains happiness when you slay its foes, and though our enemies may have committed enough evil to keep them long in torment, even as you strike them down, O Devi, you think, may they reach heaven through death in battle with me. Why does your mere glance not reduce all asuras to ashes? Because you direct your weapons against them, and thus purified by your missiles, even those enemies may attain the higher worlds. Such is your most kindly intention toward them. If the intense light flashing from your sword or the glaring brilliance of your spear point did not blind the Asura's eyes, it was because you caused them to also behold the moon-like radiance beaming from your face. O Devi, your nature is to subdue the misconduct of the wicked. Others cannot equal your inconceivable grace, for even as your might destroys those who have wrested power from the gods, you show compassion toward those very foes. So let's take this apart and have a look at it. The world attains happiness when you slay its foes. Mother does respond, perhaps not as quickly as sometimes we might like, certainly not as quickly as the devas would like. This is why they finally go to her and say, Mother, this is going on too long. They've robbed us of our ability to sustain and protect your creation. You must do something. And so she does. But as it says, the world attains happiness when you slay its foes. And though your enemies, and though our enemies, the Daityas and the Asuras, may have committed enough evil to keep them long in torment, even as you strike them down, O Devi, you think, may they reach heaven through death in battle with me. So she has gathered all power unto herself, becomes, of course, unconquerable, and slays these demonic forces. But then it says, why does your mere glance not reduce all asuras to ashes? Because you direct your weapons against them. So she doesn't just do this terrible deed of slaying everyone. She directs her weapons against them. So this is what we need to think about as spiritual aspirants. This compassion toward those who seem so wrong to us. And the fact that they aren't just simply reduced to ashes by her mere wish or glance, she directs her weapons against them. And this is why the thought arises, this pandemic is clearly a weapon. And if we believe that Mother is in charge of everything, as the Chandi insists that she is, and even sweet reason will lead us to that conclusion, that there is a power in the universe, as Swami Vivekananda said, that thinks of itself as feminine. And he said, and her name is Kali, which is the transforming power. Kali and Shiva are the transforming power. This is the Kali Yuga, the age of transformation. And so it says, because you direct your weapons against them, and thus purified by your missiles, even those enemies may attain the higher worlds. Such is your most kindly intention toward them. In other words, for all of us, the devas, the humans, who are in the middle of this battle between the devas and the asuras and daityas, for all of us, all her children, in whatever form, Mother is pulling us toward the higher worlds, finds a way for us to attain the higher worlds. If the intense light flashing from your sword or the glaring brilliance of your spear point did not blind the asura's eyes, it was because you caused them to also behold the moon-like radiance beaming from your face. As it says in the Chandi, Mother is the moon and moonlight and happiness itself. Now, why moon? Why moon? Because we would be blinded. Everything would be blinded by unprotected, unmediated exposure to the great reality. Our nervous systems are not capable of dealing with it. So what we see in universe, which is Mother, is the reflection of this. It's quite enough to both create the universe and all of these activities, the reflection. But it is indeed a reflection. You cause them also to behold the moon-like radiance beaming from your face. O Devi, your nature is to subdue the misconduct. O Devi, your nature is to subdue the misconduct of the wicked. Others cannot equal your inconceivable grace. For even as you might destroy those who have wrested power from the gods, you show compassion toward those very foes. Even as your might. Others cannot equal your inconceivable grace, for even as your might destroys those who have wrested power from the gods, you show compassion even toward those enemies, those foes. So before I go on to the concluding parts of this talk, which is some perspective from other saints, it was a saint clearly that put together the Chandi. Are there any comments or questions, and particularly any questions that you have about this idea of the mother doing these things and the fact that, or as I say a fact, the surmise that what is going on now is a parallel for what is talked about in the Chant. Anything at all from anyone?
Brother Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes, Haima.
I don't have any comments, but I 100% agree. That's exactly what I thought last March. And I still think Kali is working on the universe. I truly, truly, truly believe in this.
Well, good, dear.
After I even lost so many family members in the last 1 or 2 this month, but still I believe that's what is happening. It's happening.
Yes.
And I don't know when it's going to stop, but it is. Thank you so much for the wonderful wisdom that you instilled in us. Thank you.
Well, you know, the wisdom is not mine. The wisdom is from the Chandi.
Thank
And
you,
from
Brother
Swami Swahananda and Swami Sarvadivananda. But the fact is there is great wisdom here.
It is. There is.
And we do not understand the karma
Yes.
of who lives and who dies. It's completely beyond our finite minds to understand Mother's intentions, if indeed we believe that's what this is. Thank you, Haima. I'm sure what you're saying is the absolute truth.
Very
I
true.
do believe this.
Thank you.
And thank you. Anything else from anyone? Particularly any questions about what this is and how it works, or any other comments that you have to make? Well, let me put it another way. How does all this strike you? It's what's going on. How does these stories of the Chandi about the demonic forces wresting power from the beneficent forces that are whose job it is to protect and sustain us, Vishnu and Mother's servants? How does all this strike you?
This is Tom. Can you hear me?
Yes, Tom, I can hear you well.
So how it strikes me, I have no idea if there's any such thing as demonic forces. I kind of hope there are not. I think of these as forces that are like within the human psyche, within our personality. So you ask how it struck me. That's how it strikes me. I don't know, but I'm more inclined to believe that this refers to things within my own state of mind than some external good force or bad force, some demonic force or some god. That's possible. That may be true, but my hunch is it's something that's within us.
Very good, Tom. Yes. And there are people, as Krishna says in the Gita, chapter 17, I believe, 16 or 17, in which he describes people of divine and demonic nature, human beings. So yes, it manifests through these human beings. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Anyone else?
Brother,
Yes,
Gaurav here.
yes.
Yes. The thing is, isn't it true we create our own demons? There's nothing called the devil and all that, so it's pretty much our uh, own creation and our own the way we look. We have the outlook towards the world and everything. So if you're kind of materialistically more attached, you generally get attached to these things and you create your own stuff.
Well, the mythologies and the scriptures say there are these dark forces as well as good forces in universe. And yes, they manifest through us. Whether there's a devil, a head devil, as Indra is king of the gods, is there a king of the demons? Some mythologies say yes, some say no. But clearly, you're right that these things manifest through us. And we can see that there are in the world today people whose idea is their concern is only themselves and how things affect them and what they want in the way of wealth and power. And so we have a very polarized socio-political situation now.
Yes, to second that, brother, I was just going to relate back to whatever we are going through the pandemic and so many people dying and everything. That too is because of someone's creation, or something someone did somewhere. We don't know yet what it is. But so we kind of cause all this darkness ourselves as human beings.
Well, yes, whether the virus was created in a lab somewhere or whether it's a naturally occurring phenomenon is an open question. There certainly have been plenty of viruses. The Spanish flu, which is a misnomer, of course, wasn't Spanish any more than the pandemic is Chinese. But the so-called Spanish flu, which hit its peak in 1918, pretty clearly there was no lab capable of creating such a virus at that time. So this is why the mythology says that this is the work of the divine. And the point that was trying to be made here is that the mother's love encompasses all of creation, all of us, whether there be gods and demons, or whether it's all just some life form, the human being. That which breathes, of course, is what's meant by jiva. And who knows what that may mean beyond the limits of Earth, if anything at all. But there is definitely something happening. There is a great change taking place. We see it. We see it in the ferment that is there in virtually every field of human endeavor. And some of it is very positive, and some of it is very negative. So what the roots of that are, some people argue for the nature-nurture explanation. Others argue for karma and reincarnation. These are things for us to take in, fully take in, so that we thoroughly understand it before we decide whether we believe it or not. And we have the way to fully understand it is to practice whatever it is that will help us understand. As Swami Vivekananda said, you'll never understand chemistry by reading the chemistry book or simply saying chemistry, chemistry, chemistry. You must go in the lab and do the experiments. And then you understand chemistry.
Brother Shankara.
Yes.
This is Keith.
Yes, Keith.
In terms of the conversation about evil and devils and things of that nature, I've done some reading that basically just talks about there being different planes of existence, tons of them with different beings, and those are just another manifestation of the one in their specific dharma, going through their thing. So don't know how true that is. Don't know how true any of it is. I think what shines through to me in all of this is the only level of control I have, the very, very little level, is no matter what's going on, trying to dig deeper into who I am. And that's really all I can do, besides fighting a good fight and handing the results over to Rama.
Very well said, Keith. The only thing for us to do is the journey of self-discovery. That's the only really meaningful thing for a spiritual aspirant. It isn't necessarily true for every human being, but for a spiritual aspirant, the journey of self-discovery has to become their primary focus. And so many things come to our attention. Some of them are worthy of assimilating, some of them are not. And so that's why I said early on in this talk today, take from it what you will. But it is, on Mother's Day, a way of talking about the Divine Mother and her love for her children, all her children. So that's really the point.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
As you said, the age of transformation, and everything is transforming at such speed. I think Mother has traded in her Chevrolet for a Tesla and is putting her legs on the gas pedal going from 60 to 180.
Right.
We just have to fasten our seatbelts.
Well, we just definitely have to fasten our seatbelts, as Betty Davis said in that movie. It's a bumpy ride. And so yes, we need to fasten our seatbelts. And in a spiritual sense, that means be attentive to that which lifts us up.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
I wanted to make 2 comments and raise one question. The comments, one is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3 or 4, in which Krishna proclaims that whenever there is an overpowering element of unrighteousness in the world, or evil, or some kind of destruction, like Mahishasura's acts, then I will take birth. Whenever, he says, not one time, any time these kind of situations arise, I will come to destroy the evil and re-establish the kingdom of righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. And also looking back at pre-Vedic times or Vedic times, every time somebody, some great sage has always predicted that pralaya will come. Pralaya means total annihilation. of the entire universe. And it will start, it will not be total destruction in that sense, but it will be kind of regeneration through destruction.
Mhm.
So we are, I think, currently facing that situation in which three things are happening. One is that divine power, call it Krishna, call it by whichever name, is now not intervening, but divine, yes, you can call it divine intervention, in which the divine force, coming through pandemic is teaching us this kind of lesson, that there is too much of materialism, too much of indulgences, whatever name you want to give. But there is terrible, terrible imbalance, like you mentioned, climate change, which is, going berserk, nobody's taking care of it. And this disease, this materialism, this anarchy sort of everywhere.
Mhm.
So when these conditions arise, this is a boon in the form of destruction. Now, that's my comment, but my question is there any other benign way, not a violent way of destroying and then regenerating? Could it be Mother, for example, goddess Chandi? Could she have used her moonlight power, the benign power, the soft power, to mend the situation? Because there is so much destruction, and we all know that even in a righteous war, there are so many innocent lives that are destroyed.
Yes.
So
Well,
that's my question.
in answer to your question, Uma, in each instance of the three instances told in the Chandi,
Yeah.
and by the way, I really appreciate you bringing out Krishna's promise
Yeah.
that whenever evil prevails and righteousness declines,
Yeah.
he will take form to restore order, restore righteousness.
Yes.
And these are parallel stories.
Mhm.
Now we know that at the end of Krishna's life, the Vrishnis were in a terrible situation and were actually destroyed, his
Yeah.
clan,
Yeah.
the solar clan. So violence. In each of the three instances related in the Chandi, the mother first offers and says to her children, she's speaking to these children, these arrogant, defiant children that and violent, they are themselves violent. She says to them, oh, please just let's restore things to the way they should be, and without battle or anything.
Mhm.
And in each case, they are the ones who force the issue.
Mhm.
As we remember, Mahisasura, he really goes through many changes in order to try to defeat her.
Mhm.
And in the third story, the demonic king, whose name I don't recall, says to his agent, his emissary, to the mother, he says, if she won't come voluntarily and submit to me, drag her by the hair.
Oh my, like Draupadi. Draupadi was dead.
Yes, exactly. So mother says, you think you really want to give that a try? That's essentially what she says to the emissary. She says, "You think you really want to give that a try?" And he says, "Well, those are my orders." And then, of course, all hell breaks loose because he does try, and all hell breaks loose. Now, transformation. You talked about, the destruction. There's no such thing as something new without that which is, that's which precedes it, being destroyed, transformed. We melt the gold to make new forms out of the gold. So that's what seems to be going on. Certainly there does seem to be a transformation going on the planet and in the minds and hearts of human beings. And we have become, as a race, human race, we see it in the socio-political situation here in the United States very, very clearly, but it's a worldwide phenomenon. We have become polarized. Two different camps, seemingly irreconcilable. But what I'm talking about today, though it involves these violent situations and so on, is a mother's love. And the fact that she will, if we are to use this metaphor of the mother, she will restore order, and she will take to herself the darkness and make sure that all of her children have access to a higher and more fulfilling way of living. That's what's told in the Chant, in these verses that explain who she is and what she does. So, anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankar,
Yes, Bhagarat.
I look upon it in a little different way. We think death is bad. Who says death is bad? Good or bad, it is necessary. And when you can dharma and adharma to proliferate or produce beyond the level of endurance of the earth is itself an adharma. It has got to be trimmed like a surgeon does with a dead limb. It has to be trimmed. So I look upon earth in context of the larger universe. It's a small little place where some metabolism is going to go on because that is the product of life. And metabolism consists of two parts, anabolism, which is productive, and catabolism, which is destructive. Both of them are kept in balance. So if there are random acts of kindness, there are also random acts of unkindness. Together they keep the balance, and to keep the balance in proportion is the divine power, where destruction may look very cruel, but it becomes necessary. On the other hand, how come Ramakrishna never says that Mother Kali, I have always worshipped you. Why do you kill me when I'm so young? He never said that. He accepted it. Swami Vivekananda never said that I'm in the mid-30s. Why do you let me call right now? I still have life to live. Shankaracharya did the same thing. That means we also have to learn as human beings to submit to death. When time comes, whatever is necessary, you do that job, and by that act to trim the universe, you will be taken off. But order will be restored because that is the nature of the universe.
Thank you, Bhagarat. Absolutely, very well said. And of course, There are many, many lessons given to us about the significance of death. Chapter 2 of the Gita, Krishna is very explicit about the fact that this coming and going, taking of a garment of an action and experience suit, and then putting it off is not that significant. And of course, in Karma Yoga, Swami Vivekananda gives these instances of people who have that perspective that their particular lives are not so very important. So in one way or another, they're willing to sacrifice them, either deliberately dying for the benefit of others, or slowly sacrificing their life through service for others. So yes, we do not understand, most people, how significant or insignificant death may be, but still we need to be on the qui vive, because we don't want to die unaware and be caught flat-footed in a situation where we're compelled to do something as a result of the way in which we die. This is what Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother say very well. So there'll be time for more comments and questions at the end. I'm going to conclude the presentation portion of this with the testimony of 3 saints about the nature of the divine, which we've been speaking of as Mother, the nature of the divine and how it sees us. This is Saint Catherine of Siena, a Catholic saint who was so highly regarded by the Catholic Church, they named her as a doctor of the Church, which is a very rare and very high honor. Saint Catherine of Siena. This is a quote from her. "Strange," she once said, "that so much suffering is caused because of the misunderstanding of God's true nature. God's heart is more gentle than the Virgin Mary's first kiss upon the Christ, and God's forgiveness to any thought or act, and God's forgiveness to any thought or act is more certain than our own being." I'll read that again, just so it doesn't go by so quickly. Saint Catherine of Siena. "Strange," she once said, "that so much suffering is caused because of the misunderstanding of God's true nature. God's heart is more gentle than the Virgin Mary's first kiss upon the Christ, and God's forgiveness to any thought or act, is more certain than our own being." Now, we may see God as Mother or Father or genderless, but this, according to this illumined soul, Saint Catherine, that's what is said of her. This is her testimony. This is from Hafiz, very different tradition, the Sufi tradition, very different place, Persia. And this is his poem, "Each Soul Completes Me." Each soul completes me. "My beloved said, 'My name is not complete without yours.' I thought, how could a human's worth ever be such? And God, knowing all our thoughts, and all our thoughts are innocent steps on the path, then addressed my heart, God revealed a sublime truth to the world when he sang, I am made whole by your life. Each soul completes me. So I'll read it again. This is Hafiz, Sufi saint, recognized as an illumined soul by the community of the Spirit, very highly regarded all around the world. Each soul completes me. My beloved said, my name is not complete without yours. I thought, how could a human's worth ever be such? And God, knowing all our thoughts, and all our thoughts are innocent steps on the path, then addressed my heart. God revealed a sublime truth to the world when he sang, I am made whole by your life. Each soul completes me. And this from Swami Vivekananda in his Kandana Bhavana, which is translated as breaker of this world's chain. This is Swami Vivekananda singing about Sri Ramakrishna. Love, who art partial to none, we are equal before thy sight. Love, who art partial to none, we are equal before thy sight, before the sight of love. So now, any more comments or questions from anyone about what has just been read or anything else in this morning's presentation?
It seems to me that it has felt for quite a while that we're coming to an end of an age, perhaps 200 years or more, of the way in which the world has made its living, has set up its cultures, has looked upon minorities and women, etc., that all of this is in judgment now and is changing. And the climate change is the most powerful demonic force that was created by how we all made our living in the last 200 some years. We have been very destructive to the planet. And now the planet is fighting back.
Very well
But
said, Bev.
everything to me seems to point to this crisis of ending all sorts of moral and political and everything.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And two things I would recommend to anyone. First, read something written and published in 1994 by Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker was one of the foremost theorists about human organization, how human beings organize to do things. And he wrote an article published in Harper's Magazine in 1994 called The Age of Social Transformation. And it is such a prophecy. It is really quite remarkable, the age of social transformation. And then from an artistic perspective, the perspective of a great artist, I suggest you listen to Eliza, E-L-I-Z-A, Gilkison, G-Y-L-K-I-S-O-N, Eliza Gilkison. Her song, The Great Correction.
What's the name? What's the name again?
Her name is Eliza,
Yeah.
Eliza
Uh-huh.
Gilkison, Gylkison.
And what's the name of the article?
It's not an article, it's a song.
Oh,
It's called The Great Correction or something very like that. You just Google her name
okay.
or go on YouTube and put in her name,
Okay.
and this song will come up.
Okay.
And it is really quite a remarkable, again, a prophecy. When the Great Correction comes. And it points exactly to what you were saying, Beverly, that the way we have been making our living, the way we have been living with the planet for at least 200 years, certainly since the Industrial Revolution, has made a great difference. And what Peter Drucker points out in his article is that both the change from a hunter-gatherer society to an agrarian society, and then the later change from an agrarian society, a serfdom-based society, to the Industrial Revolution. He says both of these will look like blips on the record compared to the change that is underway that he called the age of social transformation. And you'll see a great deal of prophecy in that article. A very informed prophecy. It's not psychic or somehow he identifies the sources of his prophetic words.
Can you please spell Drucker?
Yeah.
Peter?
Peter.
Yeah.
And the last name, D as in dog, R as in Roger, U as in under, C as in Charlie, K as in King, E as in Edward, R as in Roger.
Okay.
Peter Drucker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Oops. Shankara.
Yeah, thank you. Or you can call me anything you like, dear. Just call me for dinner. Just be sure and call me for dinner.
Oh, well, I'll call you any old time.
Okay.
Brother,
So, yes.
I'm up here.
Yes.
One of the things I'd like to offer is on my way down to Alabama yesterday, I was listening to my Kabbalist teacher, Michael Berg, and I love how he pronounces Satan as the negative energy. And the part of me that resonates with that is the desire to receive for the self alone. And I love that as a like a mantra for Satan, because that's the part of me that is out of line with the service part that I came here to participate in. I came here to be a servant of the divine, not to receive for myself alone. And I see that as part of the lesson of the pandemic, which for me occurs as very organic. The heaviest price being paid by the elderly and those with compromises. That's how Mother Nature works. And it seems very organic, whether it was, and I don't believe it was created in a lab, but it doesn't make any difference, because the impact of it is that, much like 9/11, the most obvious lesson is, if you have people in your life that you love, this is the time to let them know that you love them and how much they mean to you. Because there are people dying all over the world. And it's, let's leave the death to the dying, and the living, our job is living well. And that means, for me, it means acting in community and acting in the highest good for the highest number of people. And we haven't been doing that, in my judgment, in our political system. And we're getting that opportunity now to make those decisions based on the highest good for the highest number of people. So I'm somebody who's from the beginning has been mining for pandemic gold. And I also don't think that the Black Lives Matter movement last year would have had the impact that it had if those of us that didn't, if we hadn't had as much time on our hands, it wouldn't have manifested like it did.
Very well said.
Much like we did in the 60s and 70s for Vietnam War. And if enough of us stand up and say, no, we will not put up with this, this is not in our best interest, then that's a breakthrough that I've been living for.
Very good. Thank you, Amadas. Yes. Yes. Well, the whole point of today's talk was for us to see the example of a mother's love. And then, by extension, the love of the divine for all its children, and for us to share in that, for us not to reject or judge or hate anyone. We may abominate their actions, but still wish the best for them and love them. One of the devotees of this place had a teacher some years back named J.C. Gazaway. And like all teachers, he had various kinds of students with various kinds of temperaments. And some people would come to him and complain about others of his devotees and the way they behaved and so on. And he would listen for a bit, and then he would say, well, all that may be true, but we're just going to go on and love them anyway.
Mhm.
Because that's the only real transformative power. That's the truth behind the superficial stories of the Chandi. It is mother's love for all her children to give them the opportunity to rise to something higher and more, no matter how they come to this opportunity. So let us be, as has been pointed out by a number of people, let us be in recognition of the fact that we're all in this together, no matter what the nature of the person is.
Brother, can I say something?
Of course, brother.
So are we trying to, we are trying to realize mother's love by loving everybody around us? Can we say that?
If we do take a stand that I'm going to practice kindness and loving affection, we find it has a transformative power on us and inevitably on the other people we're interacting with as well. Yes, characterize that as a mother's love, which, in human terms is perhaps a really good mother is perhaps the best example of divine love that we're going to find in human form. But certainly it's said that behind that, and the example that we study on Tuesday evenings is Sri Sharada Devi, who was herself an example of divine love for all her children. All her children.
So can I say in that same note that there are all these politically backed movements are all around us? I know there is the Black Lives Matter movement. I know the Blue Lives Matter movement and whatnot that's going on. But there is absolutely politics behind all of it. Because I am Indian. I am not Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter. But my life matters too. Everybody's life matters.
Yes.
Well, that's
So I think going for only black, not really. God created all of us. So absolutely, we should love everybody. That is what
And
we
that,
should be doing.
but Gaurav, the difficulty of that for most people is that love is an active verb. It's not a passive verb. It's not something we do just sitting alone by ourselves. No, we manifest it when we encounter the checker at the supermarket, when we encounter the police officer, when we encounter whoever it is. We manifest that, as St. Francis of Assisi said, a kind face is a precious gift.
Yes.
And you can't fake a kind face.
Yes. Yes.
You cannot fake a kind face.
Yes.
If your face is
Absolutely.
truly kind, it's because you're manifesting kindness.
Absolutely. So basically, you will have to be unrestricted in the love that you can provide to everybody, and the skill. Yeah. So superficial stuff doesn't really matter. It's, you got to realize that we are all children of God, and we have God in every one of us, every individual, no matter how good they are, how bad they are. Relative. That is all relative stuff.
We take that as a truth, and then take a stand for it until we actually know it, which is some ways down the road for most people.
Oh, yes. That is the hard part, I guess, experiencing it
Yes.
firsthand, I guess.
But we can believe the saints and say, because they say this, and because I feel it somewhere in my heart, I will take a stand for it. And so I will practice it. You know, the more we practice the ideal, the nearer we draw to the ideal.
So the closer,
draws us
brothers,
to the-
yes. So the closer we try to get to the ideal, we look beyond skin colors, races, religions, and whatnot. That's what I feel. That means that's what I'm experiencing personally in my own life.
Yes, we yes, we look toward that divine spark of being that is in each one of us, regardless of how they appear to us. And of course, that's a practice. That's why I say love is an active verb. It's not a passive state of being.
Brother Shankar?
Yes, Bhagavat.
No, I want to expand what we are thinking to a Vedantic viewpoint. And instead of everybody, we should say everybody, so that we include not only human beings, but everyone around. Right in the very beginning, you said cat mother, dog mother. It was beautiful. That is a Vedantic concept. Because even a tiger, whom we think ferocious, the tiger mother keeps the best portion of the meat that she hunts for the kids. And she takes them to the cave, feeds the babies, and then only eats. So this is the mother love. Only thing is, the difference between a mother love and a divine mother love is that mother love is only restricted to one's own younglings. Divine mother considers everyone to be a youngling. And therefore, there is no distinction whatsoever. And this is the reason why the last part of what you said, that love is the answer, is really the answer, which perhaps Jesus Christ described the best in his lifetime. So right now, if we preserve all lives, because all lives matter, in that case, perhaps like Beverly said, we can extend the life of this planet a little longer, 1,000,000 years more. Ultimately, it's going to come to distinction, but nothing more than that. And that is our job as living beings on this planet. That is the tax we are paying to the earth on which we are sharing our life.
One that you're so right, Bhagarat. And a little phrase that can be a little mantra that can be easily memorized is this by Swami Vivekananda. Where shall we go to find God, if not in our own hearts and in every living being? Where shall we go to find God, if not in our own hearts and in every living being? So yes, you're right. All lives matter. And that's what was presented as this idea in these stories of the Chandi. It wasn't just the good guys that Mother loved. She loved her violent, defiant, arrogant children also. Though it is her nature to subdue their misconduct, it's said.
Brother
Brother
Shankar,
Shankar,
Katrina first and then Uma.
yeah, I have two comments. One, I think it's important to make because I think, what I love about this group, we got different perspectives, and a person from the African American community. The thing about Black Lives Matter, the underlying purpose behind it, from my understanding, is there's been a system in place that says that Black lives do not matter.
Oh, yes.
And when a person operates or a system operates from that perspective, then if that life does not matter, then that life is treated differently and seen differently.
Amen.
And so when the slogan went out that Black Lives Matter, it was not from my perspective, it was not saying that other lives don't matter or just Black Lives Matter. It was to say that Black lives matter too.
Yes, exactly. And you're right, so right, Katrina. There's been a system in place, not just here, but many, many places in the world.
Right.
That took as its premise that Black lives did not matter.
Right. And so I wanted to say that, hopefully to give a different perspective of that slogan. Because I do think, and I know people, there seems to be a big push for animal rights. And I was surprised a couple of years ago, and this is in relation to Mr. Floyd and how and what happened to him. Mm-hmm. And to suppress your knee on a human being for that length of time. And a couple of years ago, Target was doing a campaign, and you can donate your change to the animal rights group, or for shelter or for children. And it surprised me that the amount of money, and the shopper had the option of putting their change in whatever basket they wanted to. And what was so surprising to me is that there was more money in the basket for the animals, and I'm an animal lover, than there were for the children. And so when I saw the video of George Floyd, and I know a lot of people were outraged about it, and rightfully so, but I thought, if that had been a dog and he had his knee on that dog for that length of time, I think even there would have been even more outrage. And that troubled my soul. So I just wanted to share.
What would have happened, Katrina, is very likely the other policemen around him, the other 3 that are now being charged with violation of George Floyd's civil rights, they would have restrained him. They would have said, "Hey, come on, you're going to kill that dog."
You absolutely, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for saying that. Yes, mm-hmm. And so I wanted to and I needed to share that. It's not to
Thank you,
say
Katrina, and
no
we
lives, other
appreciate
lives matter.
we appreciate who you are and why you said it.
Thank you. And there's one other thing I'd like to share too, on a well, they're both high notes, and that is I thank you for today's lesson because I finally have a different perspective of everything that's going on now. And that perspective is this, is that all of what this shift that we're going through, to me, is saying that there are so many people in the world now who want to operate or move towards that alignment with God, that divine love. Because if we create our worlds, then that means we're creating this and we're wanting the change. And it's painful. Well, it's challenging, but it says to me that the majority of the world, consciousness of the world, is wanting this change, because if we didn't want it, we wouldn't be going through it. So I thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Thank you for both those points.
Brother Shankar,
Yes, Uma.
may I quote one very beautiful, heartwarming poem, 2 lines, which compares mother and God.
Please.
It's in Hindi and I cannot sing, but I will just translate. There are 2 grown-up sons who ask their mother, Mom, can you tell us, have you seen God? If you have seen, can you describe? And mother is very humble. She did not say anything. She just very lovingly looked at the sons. Then one of the sons said, Ma, can there be any treasure in the world greater than your love? So that's one son appreciating mother. The other son says, Mom, whoever God is, can God's face be sweeter than your face?
Mm-hmm.
And it was so touching, you have to listen to it, that if there is anything, and of course we all are creations of God, and we are all children of God. But if the concept of all loving, all forgiving, all benign, kind person, or our imagination of that highest love, can there be any other person on earth than mother who reflects that?
Uma, could you do a nice translation of that poem?
Yes.
Of just what you read. Just do a nice translation.
Okay.
Send it to me,
Sure.
and I'll see that it's posted with this talk, because it is a perfect example of an unsentimental,
Yes.
but very loving
Yes.
evocation of mother's love,
Yes.
human mother's love.
Thank you, I will. Thank you. But it's really such deeply moving that this is what God is in on this earth.
Yes. Well, if we take seriously these words that are taught to us, like omnipresence,
Yeah.
there cannot be anything else. It is omnipresent, whatever we may wish to call it, however we may wish to see it.
Mm-hmm.
If we credit that and we think Either God is omnipresent or God is not, as Vivekananda says. Either God is infinite, eternal, unchanging, though all change happens within the divine, or there is no such thing. So, yes, that's just a way of saying yes to what you said.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? All right, dears. Well, I'm not going to read it because I don't want to take more time, but there will be a poem posted. It's a poem that was written for Mother's Day a little while back. It's called Ma and Pa in Georgia. It'll be posted with this talk. It's in the notes of the talk. So one of the names for the divine being, it was applied to Christ, of course, is Emmanuel. God with us, or God at hand. It literally means God at hand. If we believe in omnipresence, then God Emmanuel, God at hand. So let there be peace in outer space. Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees. May the gods be peaceful. May the whole universe be pervaded by peace. Let that infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. May you go forward in the mother's loving and protective embrace. Until next time we meet, which could be as early as tomorrow evening for our reading and discussion of the poems in the book Love Poems from God, or Tuesday evening as we study the life of Holy Mother, or Wednesday evening as we study the talks of Swami Vivekananda gathered together as Jnana Yoga. All of those are available on Zoom at 8 p.m. on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Any final thought from anyone? All right, dears. Happy Mother's Day. May we appreciate Mother's love, the love of our own mothers, and the love of every mother, and the Divine Mother. Until next time.
Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day, everybody.
Bye-bye.